Thank you, Paul, and good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. So, 10 years ago, I was at a real crossroads in my life. As Paul has mentioned, I was working at a large for-profit organization, and I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I didn't want to just help people buy things faster. So at the time, my husband and I found SVP, and we joined, and we dove really deep. I took every class, went to every seminar, joined every committee. Every time Paul called, I said, sure, I'm there. And so 10 years later, here I am, having made connections that, thank you, Sophia, having made connections that have changed my life and helped me hone my passion and realize that what I really want to do with the rest of my life is help people define and achieve their success. So now, as Paul has mentioned, I'm the founding executive director for an organization called Year Up. And what Year Up does is it works with young adults and helps them through a one-year college-credited, fully stipended internship make the move from poverty into the working world and into post-secondary education. So to give you an idea of the scope and scale of the issue that Year Up addresses, in the United States today, there are 4 million young adults ages 18 to 24 who are neither employed nor enrolled in post-secondary education. So it's 4 million people. In the Puget Sound area alone, there's 15,000 young adults in that category. And you can imagine that these young people have far less access and far fewer connections than I had when I wanted to make my change. So I want to share with you the story of one person, one man named Roberto, who had 2 connections in his life that helped him make a giant change. And all it took was 2. One was a high school principal, and the other was his relationship with an organization. So here's his story.
Good morning. You heard the expression opportunity divide. I'm going to explain what that means. Part of the training at Year Up is to learn about the culture of corporations. You're taught things like the importance of wearing a suit, reading newspapers, furthering your education, and respecting people with more experience. Here's what it's like in the culture in my neighborhood. If you walk out the door wearing a suit, people will ask you if you're getting married or who died. At the corner store, you'll find some newspaper, but you won't find the Wall Street Journal. Furthering your education means getting your GED in jail. And respecting people with more experience means not crossing the local drug dealer. That's the opportunity divide. Of course, plenty of people from bad neighborhoods go on to become successful in life. But most of them had a stable, loving home in spite of their surroundings. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case for me. My brother, sister, and I were abandoned by my parents. We were in foster care, but my grandmother found us and adopted us. We lived on the Lower East Side. Whenever we were happy, my father would get out of jail, show up, and ruin it. He stayed long enough to make us miserable. Then he'd be gone. My birth mother lived but a few blocks, and we rarely saw her. She was a drug addict and a prostitute. I remember her saying once, if you keep your grades up, I'll come get you. I kept my grades up, but she didn't come. I stopped caring about grades. My grandmother loved us, but it was hard. She spoke no English. My brother and I roamed the city. We had no bounds. We would fight and steal. My brother dropped out of school in the 7th grade. And in the 12th grade, 2 credits short of graduation, I quit. School felt like a joke, and we needed money. My father continued to show up and brought violence with him. People would threaten to kill us because of the things he had done. As I got older, I looked more and more like him. That became a problem. I couldn't walk into my building without the fear of being jumped. I was afraid my presence was endangering my grandmother, brother, and sister, so I took to the streets. At 18, I was homeless. I slept in parks and trains. I worked at McDonald's so at least I had something to eat. Eventually, my uncle took me in. One night, my friends and I were surrounded by gang members. Guns were pointed in our faces, and my friend was knifed almost to death. We were saved when the police showed up. I couldn't sleep for days. I kept thinking, if I had died, what had I accomplished? So I went to the Catholic Big Brothers and Big Sisters and asked for a job. While I was working there, my high school principal reached out and gave me a second chance. I graduated. This was a big day for me. I was the first in my family to receive my high school diploma. But I was afraid of college. Then I heard about Year Up. Today I tell other students, Year Up changed my life in 12 months. When I walked in, I have never sent an email. When I finished my training, I was proficient on the computer, had learned office etiquette, understood investment relations, and had the support of the Year Up staff to succeed in my apprenticeship at Merrill Lynch. I worked in a different department each month. At first, I didn't feel like I belonged. I was surrounded by smart college kids. But Year Up prepared me well. With the professional skills they had taught me, I was able to work and fit in. When my apprenticeship was over, I was offered a job. I'm a senior settlement specialist. I monitor intraday fails and manage fails. I don't just like my job, I love it. 3 months later, I was honored Merrill Lynch's Service Spotlight. I think that's a fancy way of saying Employee of the Month. But whatever you call it, I was proud for the first time in my life. I set the bar far higher for myself. I refuse to give up on my brother. I'm guiding my sister to college. I'm taking care of my grandmother. And most importantly, in March, I will be a father. I'm having a son, and I will always be there for him. He will not have the life I had.
So please, don't underestimate the power of the network to change lives. The person sitting next to you at your table could be your connection to the next Roberto story. Thank you.